Welcome to Canadian Coffee House Crime. My name is Catherine. Today's case is a Remembrance Day special, which is recognized on November 11th each year. It has been observed by Commonwealth members, Canada, Britain, South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia since the end of the First World War in 1919 to honor armed forces members who have died in the line of duty. Hostilities formally ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. Ceremonies are usually held at different locations across cities and towns. The formal ceremony begins with the bugling of the last post. Immediately before 11 a.m., there is a 21-gun salute fire, and the bells of the Peace Tower toll the hour. 2 minutes pass between the first and second firing of the gun salute to maintain silence for that period. When the 2 minutes of silence is finished, there is a playing of the bugling of the Rus and the reading of the Act of Remembrance. The flypast of Royal Canadian Air Force craft then occurs, upon the completion of which a choir sings in Flanders Fields. Then various parties lay their wreaths at the base of their chosen memorials. One is set by the Silver Cross Mother on behalf of all mothers whose children died in conflicts in which Canada participated. Then God Save the King is sung in French and English. Then armed forces personnel and veterans will perform a march past in front of the Canadian flag and any formal guest. But since this is a crime channel, I will put a Remembrance Day twist on my Canadian crime. Our next story starts in Flinton, Ontario. Flinton is situated in a county in eastern Ontario. It has a population of about 500 people. The community is found on the Scutamata River. The village was established by Billa Flint's employees, a mill owner, in the 1850s. The community flourished when the employees were working at his mill on the river, which powered the entire city. You can enjoy kayaking, fishing at Deer Rock Lake, attend the August Jamboree, enjoy beautiful picnic areas and lush bike trails. Harold Joseph Pringle was born in Flinton on January 14th, 1920. In February 1940, when he was 20 years old, both he and his father, who was a marksman, proud of his service in the First World War, decided to join the war efforts during the Second World War. His father was not accepted, although due to eye problems. There is a question of Harold's age. He might have lied about being 20 and was actually 16. Pringle was accepted, although his service number was C5292. He had a habit of going AWOL to see his girlfriends. Because of this, he was sent to a reformatory camp for a year, but managed to escape after 6 months. He was then sent to Italy and was posted to the 1st Battalion, the Hastings and Prince Edward Regiment, where he did well. He performed his duties for the Hitler Line, a line of Germans set up in central Italy. After this, Private Pringle decided to desert the Canadian Army. He went to Rome and joined a 5-man crew who called themselves the Sailor Gang, a sister gang to the larger gang called the Lane Gang. The Lane Gang was put together by Robert Lane. Robert Lane was a private in the U.S. Army. He was from Briningsville in Pennsylvania. When on tour in Italy, he deserted the army and gathered together a gang of U.S. and Canadian deserters and started a criminal gang. They resided amongst Rome's criminal underworld, robbing civilians and soldiers. They held up a Polish general's car and shot a man in a liquor store and built a prostitution ring. After Robert killed the man in the liquor store, he was finally captured by the military police, was convicted of robbery and murder, and was sentenced to hanging in 1945. Robert was hanged in June 1945 at the age of 22 near Naples in Italy. The sailor gang smuggled goods into Rome for the black market. They were almost always drunk, got into fights, and one of their members shot another member, tried to take him to the local field hospital, and all of his gang said that the man died on the way to the hospital. They had said that Private Howard Pringle mistakenly shot him in the liver. The gang later shot the man after he was dead several times, so it would look like a mafia killing. The dead gang member was a Canadian soldier. His name was John Lucky McGilvery. Police apprehended almost all of the members of the sailor gang, along with the members of the Lane gang. The various gang members were tried, and Pringle was sentenced to death for murder. The chief witness against Private Pringle, who was another gang member, was given immunity from prosecution in the killing. In return for his testimony, gave 4 separate and inconsistent statements about what might happen that night, although on a bright sunny day on July 5th in 1945, not far from the Italian village of Avellino, Private Pringle was taken from his makeshift cell in a war-ravaged castle to a deserted firing range once used for target practice. Private Pringle was bound to a wooden post. He was to be shot sitting in a chair, and he had the choice of sitting facing away from the firing squad, but he chose to sit facing them and with no blindfold. And then he told the squad, "Come on, do what you've got to do. Let's get it over with." And was shot by the Canadian Army firing squad. He was buried in a grave, number 11, row B, plot 7, at Caserta CWGC Cemetery in Italy. He was 23 years old. But the military has long insisted that there was no executions carried out at all during the war. This execution was the only Canadian soldier of World War II to be executed, and was kept secret as the Prime Minister of Canada was in the middle of re-election and thought that an execution would harm his reputation. The Prime Minister of Canada had met with one of his advisors and discussed the case. 8 other soldiers had also been convicted of murder during the war, but had their death sentences commuted. The problem was 2 British soldiers had already been put to death after being convicted in the same murder, and it was thought that it might anger the British government if the Canadian were to be spared. So Private Pringle's death sentence was carried out in a remote area of Italy in absolute secrecy. The firing squad were 31 men of tens of thousands that were held back specifically for the firing squad. All involved would be prohibited from talking about it. They shot him, they buried him, and no one ever talked about it. Private Pringle was the only Canadian soldier executed in the World War II, and the last Canadian soldier executed in history. All records about it were sealed. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Catherine, and this is Canadian Coffeehouse Crime, video number 40 on November 11th, 2023. Please feel free to press the like button as it helps with my exposure, and subscribe to my channel. I try to put out a new video every week. See you in the next case.